Hi, everyone. Welcome to the OLM working group meeting. Before we move on to the discussion topic, I was just wanted to give a quick reminder about the OLM supporting tools SIG meeting immediately after this one at noon EST. So if folks want to join, uh, just a reminder for that. So moving on to the discussion topics. First, we have, oh, whoops. That doesn't seem to be loading correctly. Let me, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that's the daily sync we do, right? For initial 20 minutes. And
Yeah, it is going somewhat slower than expected.
do you want me to share my screen? Okay, then.
That might be better. Can you?
Yeah, yeah, I think you yeah, let me try this. And you should be able to see my screen now. Oops. Can you see my screen? I guess yes, right?
I can. Uh, can everyone else?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so moving on to our work items for 1.0. We have a lot of items in that are done, so congrats to everyone on that. It's a job well done. We do have a couple of items in review, so I think we could start with that.
Yeah, the first one is the docs from Rashmi. And I there are some comments, and I think she already had addressed some of it.
Yeah,
Let's see,
I
where's
just
the
had one question. I just want to ask everyone. I think there are some people that we need the manual airbag, and some are saying we don't, and also that should be a draw out an example. So just wanted to get a consensus, and then I can add the example as well.
Yeah, I think I definitely like the idea of example. I was also reviewing, I haven't added my comments, but yeah, example I think would definitely help. The
Okay.
manual airbag thing, Joe, I don't know if you have seen that comment from Michael about the manual airbag thing.
I saw him saying like we might not want to show people how to use pairs tooling because it's very sort of what's the right word? Non-enterprisey. Um, and it might be better to just say, this is a feature we're working on, and here is a simple-ish um, set of RBAC that can be used generically, and then with the caveat that this is more permitted than you probably really would want it to be. So, you know, you can assess and figure out how much you want to try to scale it back. We could potentially have an example of here's a bundle, and here is the minimum that we would derive as an example of like, here's what you would probably want to end up with, but I'm not sure it makes sense to tell people in our docs, go use these tools in our hack directory to come up with this.
Right, so I think you are saying for now it's okay to have this manual steps, and future when we have better tools we'll replace with it.
I'm saying I think our doc should probably say, here's a general catch-all that should work for just about any registry v1 bundle with caveats in the doc that say like, you know, you probably don't want this in production because it has more permissions than really what it should or needs, but this will work and it'll be able to install this stuff for you. So I think that could be one section. And then another section could say, here's an example of a bundle and its minimal permissions. And we don't really explain how we got that. We could say like, you know, um, maybe something along the lines of this is still something that we've gotten a roadmap to improve later or something like that. I
I
generally
think
agree with what Michael is saying.
yeah, I think Michael's on the call. My understanding of uh his comment here, and so Michael, feel free to correct us if we're misinterpreting. But it's generally just that having documentation on the manual way and saying like, hey, here's how you do this, but you have to do 50 steps to get there is gonna not be a great experience for users when we're saying, hey, try this out, let us know what you think, give us feedback. And I think, like Joe, you're saying, a stamped out, here's as minimum as we can get, but we'll install all of the supported bundles by OLM v1 is probably the way we should go with this initial documentation, because then they get something that they can just copy paste with, like you're saying, the caveat that, hey, this should probably not be used in production and stuff like that. So we can throw like warning things on our docs that show up in bright yellow and say, warning, this is not production ready, like, and like you're saying, has more permissions than necessary. I don't know that we necessarily need to say, like, have anything that says, here's this bundle and here's the minimum set of permissions for it. If we're not gonna give any kind of instructions on how we got there.
Yeah, possibly not. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Oh.
What we could do is there's that example that you figured out that you did manually, Joe. Like, could always link to that in that, like, hey, and if you want to see,
The
you know,
samples.
so we could link to the samples and say, here's what it would look like, and it could just be a link. Look in this, go to the samples folder.
Yeah.
My thing is, it just seems like a lot of work on our end and a lot of work on the user's end for something that we're gonna hopefully fix pretty soon.
Yeah,
Or the UX anyway. It's gonna be
yeah,
better
and I
soon.
don't think the feedback would be valuable because it's like, well, yeah, this is a terrible problem that we've handed over to users right now, and the feedback is going to be this is terrible, but we already know that it is, and we're already thinking about how to fix it. So I agree. Like, I'm not sure that having a 50-step procedure buys us anything. I think the only thing like you could possibly argue is, well, you as a user could then actually go ahead and use this in more of a production safe way. But then if we do that, then how much are we on the hook for like maintaining that procedure? And what if we want to break it? Or, I think there's like a whole can of worms that you open if you say like, here's how to do this super complex thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have the Slack channel available. We could always say, like, if you're curious about something or you want,
Right.
it's also the people
answer.
the people who maybe want that minimal RBAC might be more familiar with RBAC already.
Right.
Like I guess, and for the I think that for the casual user trying this out, their goal is not to learn how to manually define RBAC. So it
Yeah.
kind of like that was my thought.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that's a fine line of like, you don't want to, it's like the rule about like, don't set a default password in your database, right? It's like, you don't want to just like have an easy button that just works and then everyone just always uses that permanently. And we've ended up with security, like fake security. So I do think it is important for us to walk that line carefully and call out very specifically, like, this is not recommended. However, if you're trying to get started and you're working on a development cluster, here's a way that you can get started quickly. Otherwise, you should curate the RBAC appropriately for the bundle you're trying to install. Something like that.
Okay.
So still, everyone, I'm not clear about the next steps. So are you saying that we should just link to the example Or are you saying we just link to the tool of which pair has? I'm not very clear on what should be in our documentation.
My thinking here is it's essentially write a generic set of RBAC resources that will install any of our supported bundles. Throw that in the documentation with caveats stamped everywhere saying that we do not recommend this, but if you're looking to get started, this is, in a development environment like Joe's saying, this is a quick start kind of path. And then also throw in their caveats that if you're using this in production, you should manually curate your RBAC such that it's the minimum set of permissions. But like we're not gonna if you're running this in production, we assume that you're experienced enough to create that RBAC and understand any errors that come out of OLM to adjust the RBAC as needed.
And then in that sentence, that's where we could say, and here's a link to the sample where we've done that.
Right.
I think we could also link to pair script and, maybe if we're going to call this out as somewhat incomplete, we could also link to the issue. If we have an issue to
I
kind of
think
fix
we
that
can,
UX.
yeah, I think we can
But
definitely link to the issue. I hesitate to link to the scripts.
okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
how other people feel though.
I think this looks like we're going for a longer discussion. So should I park it in our meeting?
Yeah.
Rashmi, do you think you
Yeah,
have
I think
anything
I
to
started.
go on?
I think I'm good. I think what I'm understanding is I remove that manual RBAC, rather try to provide a way they can derive it and then add these things as a caveat. And if it's anything different, I'll start a Slack thread. But this is what I understand. So I'll remove that manual RBAC, but I will say it via the example in a different way.
Or we
And
can
also link to the
discuss.
sample. Yeah, sure,
Okay.
sure. Let's park it here.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Let's go through our all the cards and then we can come back to this. The next one is Anik's PR, Anik and Ankita working on.
Yeah. So the next three actually, all of them are in the same PR. So this PR has gone through a good sort of review cycles, and I think it's in a really good state right now, except for one thing. And I was in a call with Joe, Bryce, Ankita, essentially the folks who understand control on time better than me. To resolve that, we have a follow-up meeting after the SIG tools meeting too. So I'm hoping that I can resolve that today and have the PR ready for essentially the last round of review. Yeah, that's where this stands. So very close. We just need to figure out this one weird thing happening. And I'm not getting into the details of that just so that we don't bike shit on this right now.
Yeah, thanks, Anik.
Cool.
Moving to the next card, which is Brett's downgrade extension. I think the PR is up. It needs gone through a little review, and I think that's where it stands. Probably Brett needs to send an update.
Yeah, I've just started reviewing it right before this meeting, so I'm still going through. So Brett, you don't have to update it immediately.
Cool, awesome, thanks. Then there is PR from Nikolai on remove cache when catalog is deleted. I think that needs to go through review.
Yeah, it's ready for review.
Yeah, it's ready for review. Awesome. I think this column is done. Implementing, we have three cards. One is doc, which is I'm still working on this one. And then the next one is we're waiting for the API stuff to get done, then only we can come back to this. And then there is RFC for OLM V1, for which we have a meeting tomorrow. morning for EST, probably afternoon for Europe folks. So we have a meeting for tomorrow. Is there anything you want to add, Edmund?
No further updates at this time. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. The no status column, we have this RFC, review and update after control condition types, and status update logic. Bryce, is it no status or should I move it to implementing?
I have not started on it yet, but I plan to
Okay.
today.
Okay, cool. So it's no status, fine, right? So, what is a public API? This is a card which is still not assigned to anyone. And we need to, if you're interested, please assign this one to yourself. And then we have 3 cards which we're waiting for the API review to be done so that we can come back to this one. So that's pretty much our, the work items for 1.0. And I can
Joe, you
probably
have your
stop.
hand up?
Yep, I was just going to say on the public API card, if anybody does pick that up, I think we probably want to have another like synchronous discussion about it for the folks that were originally interested. Sort of like what we're going to do for the what was it? The thing that Edmund's looking at for the mono repo.
Yeah, I just assigned it to myself.
Okay.
I think yeah. We'll probably we wanted to discuss this and then get a documentation out of it. Cool. So I can keep going, Ankita. Do you want me to go to the next item or
We should
need
probably
to
check
drive
back
it?
in on the agenda. Probably the next thing we need to do is to go over our 1.0 epics, but I could be missing
One
something.
more.
Before you move off this page,
Mhm.
Lala, or whoever's hosting, sorry, I noticed looking at this display list here that we were missing an item from catalog D, and it is now showing up because it was in the accepted state somehow, and it's that 381 right there. That's one that I started last week, but I got pulled off of it, so I wasn't able to complete it. I have a draft PR that I started there, but I reverted status on it all because I'm going to also be on PTO for the next couple of weeks as well. But anyway, it's now visible.
Right. Thank you so much, Jordan. Yeah, thanks for pointing out.
Yeah, we should probably move that to implementing though, right?
No, because Jordan is going to be PTO, so that's why he is not moved into implementing, and also he probably unassigned himself.
Yeah, I moved it out of implementing back
Yeah.
and evidently moved it to accepted, which was a bad move on my part. So it became invisible.
Yeah, and it's the types tightening, this draft pair is still there, so it's not, I mean, there's something to basically get started on.
And I looked at this last week and made a comment to Jordan that I thought it looked fairly good. So I don't know, like Ankita, if you have any cycles or Onik, once the other status stuff merges, this seems like it would be, I don't know, Jordan, what you think, but it seems like it'd be fairly straightforward to pick up and carry over the finish line.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward in its directive. The complexity came in some of the unit test impacts and just a lack of time on my part, but it's pretty straightforward.
I'd be happy to take take it over the finish line if you're going on PTO.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank
Ankita.
you.
Awesome.
So I suppose we're done with the work items for 1.0. We can move on to the 1.0 epic items to see what we have remaining. Would you like to look at the release blockers first?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, please drive it, Ankita. I'll just navigate for you.
Yeah, as of now, the major thing that we have on our release blockers is about the public API, which we already went over with our work items. So unless anyone has anything to add to that.
One thing I have that's not related to that is that non-blocker that's open. We may have resolved that one. Can you open that one?
Is it this one, bug misleading
Yep.
error messages?
Yep.
Oh, I see that one's closed out.
Yeah, I seem to remember there were two issues. Were there two issues addressing the same thing?
That sounds like it was
Nice.
trying to, but that one got closed. I think that I may have improved this in a separate PR somewhere.
Yeah, I see a message that you, yeah.
Yeah, but that one was
Yeah.
very old, I think. Can you just assign that issue, that original, yeah, this one, can you assign that to me? And then can
I
we
don't
add,
know. Do we know if we have the ver 103? Is he
Uh,
planning to work on this or currently assigned to him?
that is Daphne. I don't know whether she's here in the meeting.
Does not appear that Daphne is in the meeting as of now.
No.
before you put that, Lala, I'm pretty sure that I fixed this. So that's why I'm asking if you could assign it to me and I can go and check. And if I haven't, then I can assign it back to Daphne. Or you can, yeah. I want to just make sure that we don't lose track of it because I think we can close that out.
Sounds good. So we can just change the assignee to you, Joe, and you can take a look.
And you can leave Daphne on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, I think.
Oh,
Does
and
it
then
need to
also
be?
could you put it in the 1.0?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a blocker, so I guess it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, okay. I think we're good.
So one thing that's not on this list, I don't know if it's how I am basically asking Joe. So the stuff I'm working on with respect to the services and stuff would we consider that blocker or non-blocker?
I'm not sure that that's necessarily an upstream 1.0 blocker.
Right. Okay. Fair.
It'll depend on what the outcome of that public API conversation is, though.
Which
So-
card is that? Do you guys have a card number or something?
There's no card for it, but because it came out of a downstream issue.
Oh, is this the Golang thing?
No, this is trying to use a different certificate manager with the
Oh,
upstream manifests, and it doesn't quite work the way that we've got upstream worked out. And Todd and I were looking at it yesterday, and we realized the way that we're setting up upstream doesn't make sense anyway. So Todd's got a PR up that improves it upstream, which coincidentally makes downstream work better too. So this is just an improvement all around. But it doesn't really block upstream 1.0 unless we say that the service names are part of our public API.
Right, because this does change or at least simplify the service name.
Right.
you said, Joe, that Todd.
It's in
is it
catalog D. It's a PR in catalog D.
catalog? Oh, okay. Is this the related to this PR which got merged?
No.
Okay. For some reason I'm not able to click it.
Oh.
Okay, finally.
Nope, not that one. Below. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. It says if you, if you guys think it's you can just create an issue for this and you can put it under. What you're saying is not a blocker, so fine. Should be fine. Cool. Yeah.
All right, so if that's all of the work we have in our release blockers, we can take a look at what else is on the 1.0 Epics board.
So the thing is I see here is in approved release blockers, I see the public API and also in proposed both the places. So I can just remove from one place like the proposed part, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And now that these two PRs have been merged, what should I do with this? Is this still, I mean, should I still keep it in proposed release blockers or should I just remove them from here?
I think we should move them to wherever. You can just move them down to the resolved list.
Right.
The closed ones that are all the closed ones I would move down to resolved.
Including the ones in the non-blockers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, all of them
Yeah.
that have X there, yeah. You missed one word, by the way, right there.
That one's still open, I think, right?
No, he's right. I missed the issue, this one.
Yeah.
Copy paste issue.
And then also those non-blockers. Did you?
Yeah, also the non-blockers. Yeah. Should I just remove the non-blockers or should I keep it in resolve?
I would
Because
leave them just because.
Okay.
That way you can sort of see the decision making.
Okay. I think this looks clean now. Wow, we have so many issues here. So that's great. Okay, going back, Ankita, over to you.
Yeah, we can look at the rest of the implementing epics. Most of these seem to be part of the API review work. And we have gone over the most of the issues here. The first three are related to Onyx PR. Then there is one that Jordan mentioned that he was working on the corrections types, proving that one, I believe.
Are these, I don't, Ankita, one question is, are these part of our 1.0 work items?
Yes,
These issues?
I believe
Because
they
I
are.
don't,
Considering we did go over these, right? This is the
these are
one
all
that
the
Anik
different.
has a PR for.
Right.
I do not know if we went over this one already.
No, this doesn't have any labels.
Yeah, I think this might be
Yeah, let's
that
go
might
through
have
all
been
of them.
created as part of a discussion earlier where we have to have the operator controller also switch to using the catalog D serving condition. So that work is yet to start. It should be good to be worked on as soon as Onyx PR merges.
Okay. So should we just go through each of the cards and just make sure they have 1.0 label?
Sure.
So this one has 1.0 label, B 1.0 label.
I think you might be able to see a preview if you just hover over it. So that one does have the 1.0 label. That one does
Yeah.
not. So
Right. So then I go here and just add a V10 label to it. Okay. And then this one is already done. So I think I should mark it.
yeah.
And this one has.
Yeah, the last two are just part of the API review
Yeah.
submission, right?
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Okay, so we should be done with this one.
Moving to the next one.
The documentation epic.
This is done.
I think that is marked as it should be marked as done after the review is complete, so we might want to leave that open still.
I think it's probably reasonable to close that because we now have auto-generated docs, so any changes will show up automatically in theory.
Oh, that's fair. Then we
Also, I
have
feel this one, I also feel, oh,
this is the
this,
one that Rashmi's working on, right?
right, this is under review, sorry. This is also under review, okay. I'll go to here then.
So we're on the right state for this epic too.
Right.
Then we have the operator controller API review, which just has the actual review left,
No,
provided
there is
we don't have.
RFC. The RFC
Yeah,
is also there. And
you're right.
do we want to create a card for the work needs to be done part of this RFC?
We probably can do that as part of that RFC itself.
Right.
When we did
So
the
we,
same thing for catalog D, that it ended up getting split out into several tickets that we could work in parallel. So I think we can do similar thing.
right. Um,
So
yeah, so
I
this is,
think
yeah,
that's all of the implementing ones, and the ones without any status. One is regarding the monorepo, and the other one is regarding a new repository for the Go APIs, I suppose. Joe, do you want
yeah,
to
let's
talk
talk about the
on either of them?
monorepo.
Yeah,
I think they're basically going to be related. So we're going to end up probably having a monorepo where all the APIs go. So that answers both questions. But I don't know that we should tie them together yet until we have the RFC established and written.
that should be part of tomorrow's discussion, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So we should be able to update this tomorrow then. And I think that would be the same state that we have for the repository for the Go APIs. If we do decide to go with a monorepo, we would end up with having everything live there, including the API. So
Yep, I think we should probably essentially, I'm guessing that the monorepo epic subsumes this one. And when we talk about what to do with the APIs as part of the monorepo discussion, we should make sure we account for what's listed in this epic. So I think we should, if we have time, we should talk about that tomorrow as part of the scope of what we're going to do.
Yeah, so I think it comes down to, I mean, most of the time, most of the discussion we had so far, everybody agrees on the monorepo, but we obviously, there's some questions we want to answer before we finalize the exact plan. So now that we are moving towards monorepo, we know that, the API is going to leave there. The question now is whether it should be a sub-module or not. I think that's the question we want to answer, right, Joe? Or it needs to be a separate repo, which is, I don't think, I haven't heard anybody talking about that. So even if like I talk about really broad about the issues we need to talk about, I think the question is whether we need to have a separate repo or if it is part of monorepo, which I think most of us are agreeing to, whether it should be a separate submodule or not, right?
I think the main thing that Adam was voicing when we were talking about this originally was let's not require that when someone imports our API that it ends up importing a bunch of other dependencies that cause dependency hell. So we need to essentially keep our API packages extremely clean to the point that you're basically importing those API types and probably Cube API machinery and maybe Cube API if you have like embedded API types from the API. But I think we did we mention that in this somewhere? I thought we wrote that down.
Is
Maybe
Adam in the call? Adam, are you here?
Yeah, I mean, Joe basically said everything. And I think
Yeah.
what he already wrote covers everything. right? Because there's going to be many applications that are going to need these V1 APIs, and to force them to have the dependencies and the logic of OLM V1 and catalog D is just like kind of a non-starter.
Yeah. So I think goal number one there pretty much describes what I just said in words.
I'm trying to have a question which you can take it to tomorrow's meeting. Trying to link them together in a way that we can discuss tomorrow. So what is that question? Like, I
We
feel like it is
probably definitely need to bring up this epic tomorrow then, so we do end up discussing this.
Just link it in the other epic and say we think this is related to the monorepo.
Yeah, I guess just another point, Joe, like you asked probably a month or 6 weeks ago to like actually test current state, right, with future state. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I haven't done any of that work or asked anyone else to do any of that work, because it would just be it would be more difficult right now in the current state of the world.
We could probably go and write up a fake module that imports operator controller APIs only, because operator controller, and same thing goes for catalog D. I think we've got everything else behind the internal package now, so nothing else is importable. We should be able to get a decent idea of what it would look like if we combined the APIs into one repo, because essentially that just means a few more structs that are there. The main question that I think I don't quite have a good handle on is it sufficient to, even if we've got a whole bunch of internal packages that have a whole bunch of dependencies that are not directly exposed to any users, any importers of the library, do those dependencies impact importers that import the API? And I think the question is like, is it sufficient just to have packages separated out and make sure that we don't have, like, what the other thing you want to make sure you do is you don't want to have something in your API import something from your internal, because as soon as you start doing that, then you again get this dependency hell where you import the API, the API depends on other stuff that has functions and stuff like that. So we need to prevent that too.
Yeah, and you run into the circular dependency thing.
You would. So it's probably not,
can't build anything.
Right. So that's probably not as big of a concern, because I don't know that we would, as long as we don't have functions, then we wouldn't be importing stuff from other packages, almost definitely. And if we were, we should go and root that stuff out. I think it'd be fairly easy to write a test that basically looks at all the imports of everything in the API package and says, no, sorry, you can't import stuff outside of your own API packages. So we could go and do that. My hypothesis is, as long as the AP, like we probably don't need multiple Go modules. I think as long as we don't pollute the dependency tree of the API packages, they can stay in the same Go module, and the Go toolchain is smart enough not to pull other unrelated stuff in because it's not included in the build. But I would like to validate that assumption.
Yeah, that's how I've seen things before as well. But for this, I think because of the Kubernetes dependencies, and if X version is there, but what's relying on it wants Y version, you're going to get X version no matter what, right? Assuming it's higher.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to totally get away from it because the API has to import the object meta and type meta, and the API might have to import the Kubernetes API. And so like you're going to end up tying to a specific Kubernetes version, like no matter what you do, which makes things somewhat hard no matter what. But we can at least do our best not to have other dependencies that cause even further problems. Like we shouldn't have a situation where you want to bump to 131, but also our operator lib is an older version that hasn't bumped, and we somehow ended up depending on that in our API, and that causes problems. Like we need to avoid that sort of thing. So I think it would be sufficient for us to say, from our API repo, we will only ever depend on stuff that's in Kates.io stuff, and that's it. And maybe we can even limit it to API machinery and API. In my opinion, we should write a test that implements what we think we should do.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Like you never want to have a transient dependency in there that relies on an additional version of a Kubernetes version.
Yeah.
Because that's where all of the problems lie, because then you never know which one you're going to get, right? Am I getting the version from the dependency I rely on, or the dependency of the dependency that I rely on?
Yeah, I don't know that you'll be able to totally avoid that because of the API machinery and API embedding stuff, but I think
yeah, I just mean it should come from the top level, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. It shouldn't come from
We should have
that the caller's
maybe
not aware of.
I think more generically, what I would say is we should have a fixed set of allowed imports from our API and have a check that basically says you can't import anything else. And then if you want to do that, you have to go and change our checks. And that should be something that's flagged to a reviewer that basically says, why, like you ask the question, then why are we adding this extra import here? Do we really need to? And then we can make a call about whether that's reasonable to do or not. And I would assume that that list of imports would start out as API machinery and API, or maybe just API machinery.
I might be wrong, but I feel like Seago Lint allows for some of that granularity.
I've seen stuff that lets you check for imports, so there might be something that we can do there. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not that hard probably to write our own test.
So I just joined back the call, but did anybody ask how tied together this is with the monorepo stuff?
Yeah, that's how we got started on this. Basically, we think it's extremely related. So we're going to talk about that in tomorrow's monorepo discussion.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because my main question with that was if we consider the home for the APIs as a 1.0 blocker, kind of feels like doing the like making a decision on monorepo or not, and how we do that becomes one as well.
Yeah.
Joe, Adam, can you guys summarize some of the things you guys discussed and as a comment here in this card?
Yeah, I'll put something in there about how I think we should have a test that essentially fixes and pins to the allowed set of import paths.
Thanks, Joe. I do not have the agenda. Ankita, can you please add it as action item for Joe?
Okay.
So that you can keep a track of it. Yeah, so this is go ahead, Ankita.
No, I mean I can go ahead and do that. But I can do that once the meeting is over, just so we don't block on that for now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I believe we are done with going over the 1.0 epics, so we could go back to the agenda to see what we have remaining. The
I'll
next
just
item is
stop the share so that you don't read it, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
right. Thanks, Lila. So I believe we have already completed the wait, the roadmap check-in might be.
There's the one we did. I think it's
Yeah,
kind of
I think we
covered.
already completed this. So okay. So I think that's everything that we have on our agenda. I'll go ahead and add an item in the action items for Joe to update the API PR with the tests that he mentioned. But I think that's all we have to get to, unless anyone has anything to bring up.
I think the Rashmi's topic about this is her PR. We had a lot of discussion, but I kind of stopped it because of the lack of time, right? So just wanted to bring it up if if you guys want to discuss further on this.
I'm guessing that would folks be okay if we started a Slack thread on this so there'd be more time to discuss if no one has anything to bring up now?
Yeah, maybe I can summarize what I understood. That an example on how you can be used readily, as RBAC for non-production clusters. And instead of the manual RBAC procedure, I'll add some caveats on if they had any challenges and they wanted to figure this out manually, they could do a few other things. So this is what my summary is, and basis that I'll make the changes.
That sounds good. I think also if Bryce or Joe wants to review the PR and add something that also kind of help. I think Rashmi in general, in case because I feel like there is some gray areas we talked about, right? I think the issue was we do not want to point to the script yet. If you like, we can point with the caveat that I think Bryce was saying we should point to the script saying it's not for production, it's only for development environment. If you want to use it for production, make sure the RFX is right. But I think Joe was in the opinion that we should not mention the script. So I'm not sure where we landed on that. Or maybe I misunderstood. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think my understanding is not to mention them yet. Maybe add a line saying that there will be tools provided going forward. That's what I understood.
I believe at the end of today, I think once that section has been added, if Michael and Joe and Bryce can take a look at it once more to make sure that we're not presenting anything that we shouldn't be, that would be a good way to move forward.
Yeah, Ankita, that sounds perfect.
Sounds good.
So Rashmi, once you update it and you have what you think is captured based on what we talked about today, if you could just ping me and Lala and Michael in the
Okay.
upstream Slack channel,
Okay.
then we can take a look.
Okay. That sounds good. I think that would be better.
Looking at what we have remaining on our discussion topics, I believe that's everything. So
Yeah.
thank you all for attending this meeting and have a great day.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you.
Great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.